It looks like any ordinary state quarter. A peach. An oak branch. 13 stars. You've probably spent one just like it at a gas station. But one particular Georgia quarter from 1999, with the tiny letter P just above the date, was hiding a flaw so rare, so mysterious, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world, and today, that same coin is worth up to $1.60 million. Let's go back to the beginning. It was 1999, the dawn of a new millennium. The U.S. Mint had just launched one of the most ambitious coin programs in American history, the 50-state quarters. Each state would get its own design. Billions of coins would flood into circulation. No one, not even the Mint, realized the chaos that was about to unfold. Georgia was the fourth state released. Minted in Philadelphia and Denver, its design featured the famous Georgia peach, live oak sprigs, and a flowing banner with the state's motto, wisdom, justice, moderation. But deep within the Philadelphia Mint, something went wrong. A tiny misalignment. A forgotten die. An error so precise, it only affected a handful of coins. One particular 1999 Georgia quarter was struck using a mule die, a minting accident where two dies meant for different coins are mistakenly paired together. In this case, a state quarter reverse was struck with a die intended for a Sacagawea dollar obverse, yes, a quarter with a dollar's front. That's not supposed to exist, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world, not in a coin shop, not at an auction, but in their change from a fast food order. At first, they thought it was a fake. A novelty piece. A prank, but the weight, the color, the sound when it hit the table, it was all real. They sent it off to be authenticated. Experts couldn't believe their eyes. It was genuine, and it was priceless. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled to trace its origin. How many were out there? 10? 5? Just one. To this day, fewer than a dozen examples of the mule error have ever surfaced. And each time one reappears, the price climbs higher. One sold for $1.6 million at auction after a fierce bidding war that lasted nearly 10 minutes. But here's the twist that gives every collector chills. This mule error wasn't the only valuable 1999 Georgia quarter. A separate group of 1999 P quarters shows signs of off-center strikes, where the image is shifted dramatically off its usual alignment, sometimes by as much as 40%. These are stunning to look at, with ghost-like images creeping toward the edge, leaving parts of the coin blank. Other rare variants include coins with clipped planchets, missing layers, and even doubled dies, where parts of the design, like the peach or the state motto, appear duplicated, almost vibrating on the surface. And here's the most overlooked detail: many of these errors aren't visible at a glance. Under fluorescent lighting or through worn glass, they can seem ordinary. But tilt them under natural sunlight, and the secrets start to shine. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and his story isn't unique. There's the North Carolina janitor who found a rare Georgia quarter in a tip jar. The single mother who spotted one in a church offering plate and used it to save her home from foreclosure. The Vietnam veteran who kept one in his change jar for 9 years before a friend finally noticed the error. All of them held a fortune without even knowing it. But what makes the 1999 P Georgia quarter so dangerous is how normal it looks. No gold sheen. No special color. No proof finish, just a plain old quarter with a secret. So how can you tell if your Georgia quarter is one of the rare $1 million pieces? First, check the mint mark. You want a P, not a D, not an S. The P mint mark, just above the 1999 date, means it was struck in Philadelphia, where the mule error and most rare variants originated. That's the tail side with the peach and oak branches. Look closely at the banner. Is the text crisp, or does it appear doubled or ghosted? The front, which normally shows George Washington. If you see Sacagawea's profile instead, stop everything. You might be holding the holy grail of modern coin errors, the state quarter mule. Even if it's George Washington, don't rush to judgment. Look at the spacing between the rim and the lettering. Is anything off-center? Is Liberty touching the edge? Is the coin thinner than normal, or oddly shaped? These tiny clues separate the average from the extraordinary. But here's a common mistake collectors make: they clean the coin, never clean an error coin. Not with soap. Not with vinegar. Not with anything. Cleaning can destroy thousands or millions in value, and if you find one that looks promising, don't run to a pawn shop. Get it graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC. Their certification turns your quarter from a curiosity into a verified asset, dealers are already on the hunt. Some are offering $50,000 plus sight unseen for authenticated Georgia mule errors. Others are creating bounties for specific die pairings, and here's the final twist: the mint has never officially acknowledged the existence of the mule error. No press release. No admission. Just a quiet, eerie silence, which means there could be more out there. Sitting in glove compartments. Falling between couch cushions. Dropped in drive-through windows and forgotten, maybe even one in your drawer right now. A coin most people would never look twice at, but this exact quarter, the 1999 Georgia State Quarter, could be your once-in-a-lifetime chance. Your pocket change could be worth over $1 million. So check your quarters, turn on a light, because one small mistake from the US Mint might just be your $1 million miracle. This coin almost went unnoticed, until one collector saw something that no one else did, and just weeks later, it sold for over $1 million. The 2000 South Carolina State Quarter. To most people, it looks like pocket change, but in rare cases, it's something far more dangerous and far more valuable. This ordinary-looking quarter has a secret buried beneath 200 years of American coinage tradition. A mistake so rare, so precise, and so historic that even veteran coin dealers refuse to believe it at first. But here's the kicker: the most valuable one ever found was discovered in the most unexpected place, stuck to the bottom of a gas station coffee machine. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Let's rewind the clock. The year is 2000. The US Mint is in the second year of its ambitious state quarters program, a bold campaign meant to celebrate all 50 states, one coin at a time. South Carolina was third in line, and over 742 million of these coins were minted in Philadelphia. But inside that staggering number, just a few quarters emerged with a fatal flaw. A flaw so subtle that nearly every single one slipped into circulation undetected. At first glance, you'd never see it. The palmetto tree is still there, the state bird, the Carolina wren, still flies across the design, but hidden in the texture, deep in the edge, is a twist of fate that turned copper and nickel into $1.70 million. Collectors were baffled. It wasn't a double die. It wasn't a clipped planchet. This was something different. One man, a part-time collector from Tulsa, Oklahoma, found one that he didn't know it yet, but his whole life was about to change. He was sorting through a bag of loose quarters, hoping to find silver. What he found instead was a quarter with a surface that shimmered oddly under light. It felt different, sounded different, and then he noticed something no one had seen before. But what he found under a magnifying glass sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. There it was. A South Carolina State Quarter struck on the wrong planchet, not copper nickel, but 90% silver. A leftover blank from decades prior, somehow fed into the press by mistake, and struck with the 2000 South Carolina design instantly. This was no longer a 25-cent coin. It was $1 million miracle. But the story didn't end there, because just months later, another one was found, had a misaligned die strike, causing the entire design to shift violently to one side. It was a collision of two errors, the kind of thing that statistically shouldn't exist. Dealers fought for it, bidding wars broke out behind closed doors, gasps filled the room. The hammer dropped at over $1.7 million. One woman whispered, "That was in my drawer last year." Another collector said, "This changes everything." How many of these flawed quarters are still out there, in change jars? Parking meters. And here's what you need to know: most people are looking for the wrong thing. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You see, the 2000 South Carolina quarter has several known varieties, but only a select few have the deadly combination of three critical traits: a silver planchet error, giving the coin a brighter, mirror-like finish; a misaligned die strike, throwing off the design just enough to be noticeable under magnification; a tiny, nearly invisible die gouge below the palmetto leaves, a scar left by a damaged die that was used for only a handful of coins before being pulled forever. You may be holding a seven-figure treasure. Collectors call it the Trinity error. Dealers whisper about it at shows. Some even offer five-figure rewards just for a chance to examine one. But there's something else, something even more chilling. Rumors persist of an off-center South Carolina quarter struck on a blank from a foreign coin, not a blank that was never supposed to be in the Philadelphia Mint at all. Some say it came from a Venezuelan 1 Bolivar blank. Others say it was from a commemorative medal. No one knows for sure, because the only known example vanished, last seen at a private estate sale in northern Pennsylvania. If it resurfaces, experts say it could break every auction record in coin history. Start with weight. A standard South Carolina quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, but a silver or foreign planchet error will weigh less, sometimes as little as 5.3 grams. That's a red flag. Then look at the edge, that could mean a wrong metal composition. Now check the alignment. Place the coin flat and flip it vertically. If Washington's head doesn't line up with the reverse, You may have a misaligned die. Finally, under 10x magnification, scan below the palmetto tree, look for a raised gouge, like a tiny scratch frozen into the coin itself. That's the mark of the Trinity error. But here's the most important part: don't clean it. Don't polish it, and don't rush to sell, because raw examples have gone for 5 figures. Those have crossed into the millions. One collector even turned down $1.2 million for his, because experts believe it may soon be worth double. How could something so valuable go unnoticed for 25 years? The answer is simple: most people don't look, they assume every quarter is just pocket change. But the truth is, there are treasures hiding in plain sight, coins that slip through the cracks of history, waiting for someone to see what others missed. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost got tossed into a parking lot fountain for good luck, but instead, it turned out to be worth over $1 million. A simple quarter. Just 25 cents. Found in a handful of spare change. But this wasn't just any quarter, it was a 2003 Alabama state quarter, minted in Denver, and what hid beneath the surface would soon shake the entire coin collecting world. Most people see a quarter and think nothing of it. They spend it on gas station gum or leave it forgotten under couch cushions. But one man in Mississippi looked twice. He saw something different. Something off. And his instinct, the tiny voice saying, "Don't spend this yet," would change his life forever, because this 2003 Alabama quarter had a hidden flaw. A barely visible minting mistake. A microscopic detail that almost no one noticed, except for a few obsessed collectors willing to bet their lives on their instincts. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Let's go back to the beginning. The year was 2003. The U.S. Mint had just released the Alabama State Quarter, a tribute to Helen Keller, the first blind and deaf person to earn a college degree, and a symbol of resilience. It was historic, even emotional. It featured Keller seated with "Spirit of Courage" inscribed in bold, but some of these quarters, especially those minted in Denver, had something unusual. The dies used to strike the coins were damaged, or misaligned. And on a few of them, the details tell a story the mint never intended. Collectors began noticing strange things. A doubling on the inscriptions. Weak strikes on Keller's hands. Even die cracks snaking along the braille dots, turning this ordinary quarter into a rare anomaly. That was discovered years later, by accident. At a small estate auction in Texas, an elderly woman's coin collection was being sold off. Most of the coins were ordinary, worn, common, circulated. But one small case contained a 2003 Alabama quarter, with a set of characteristics so rare, so off-register, it sparked a bidding war unlike anything the auction house had ever seen. Experts flew in. Bidders whispered rumors: could this be the one? The mythical Alabama mule error, because some of these quarters, it turns out, had been struck using mismatched dies. One side was the standard Alabama state reverse, but the obverse, the front, came from a different series altogether. A mismatched design. Two different worlds on one tiny coin, and when that quarter hit the auction floor, it sold for a staggering $1.8 million. One man's pocket change had become a life-changing miracle. Dealers were speechless. Collectors started tearing apart their sock drawers, their coin jars, their childhood collections. Suddenly, the 2003 Alabama quarter wasn't just a tribute to Helen Keller, it was a treasure map. Most people still don't know what to look for, because this coin hides in plain sight. It looks almost normal. But a few details, nearly invisible to the untrained eye, hold the key to unlocking its true value. The mint mark. It must be a D for Denver. Coins struck in Philadelphia or San Francisco don't carry this error. Then, look closely at the obverse. Are the letters slightly doubled? Is the rim misaligned? Does the braille appear to blur at the edges? Some versions of the coin show a clash die, faint ghost-like images on the fields from when the dies collided without a planchet in between. Others have subtle cut breaks near the edge, little lumps where the die cracked under pressure. The ones worth hundreds of thousands, even $1 million, carry the mule error. 2 different dies. One coin. A mistake that should never exist, but somehow slipped through, and here's the emotional part. These coins weren't hoarded by insiders. They weren't locked in government vaults or bought by billionaires, they were spent. Passed through vending machines. Dropped in drive-through windows. Left on diner counters as tips. The $1 million version of this coin could be in your pocket right now. One Alabama man claimed he got his from a high school vending machine. Another collector in Colorado said he spotted the doubling with a basic $5 magnifier while sorting coins with his grandson. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Even now, 20 years later, new varieties are still being discovered. The US Mint has never publicly acknowledged how many flawed dies made it into circulation, or how many errors were quietly destroyed, but insiders whisper that fewer than 10 known Mule Strike 2003 Alabama quarters exist, and one, graded by PCGS as MS-67, holds the record. $1.8 million at auction. Collectors were stunned. Some called it the greatest modern coin error in state quarter history. Others said it was a fluke, a ghost. But those who knew the signs? They were already on the hunt. Start with a magnifier. Check every 2003 Alabama quarter for a D mint mark. Then study the front, look for doubled letters, off-center images, or clashing ghost impressions. Flip it. Study the braille under Keller's name. Is it misaligned? Are there cracks along the rim? Any detail that seems just a little off could be worth examining further. Hold it under bright light. Tilt it. Let the surface reveal its secrets. You don't need to be a professional numismatist to find this coin, you just need to look. This quarter has transformed the lives of everyday people, janitors, retirees, students, who simply paid attention to the spare change the world forgot. These coins are still out there, not all of them have been found. Some are still hiding in piggy banks. Others are buried in old family jars. One might even be lying at the bottom of your glove box, unnoticed, for now. Because when it comes to the rare 2003 Alabama quarter, the difference between 25 cents and $1.8 million is just one detail away, and that exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a kid's piggy bank, but it sold for nearly $2 million. It was just a regular afternoon in Shreveport, Louisiana. A man named Carl, a retired mechanic and lifelong pocket change checker, was rolling quarters from a bag he'd had sitting under his workbench for nearly 12 years. Most of the coins were just dusty, forgotten metal, until he spotted one that didn't look right. At first, it was just a weird shimmer, a strange, almost ghost-like texture on the coin's surface. The eagle looked like it had been pressed down, like it was thinner, almost fading into the metal. But the detail, the precision, it was still sharp. Too sharp. That's when Carl did something he'd never done before. He reached for a magnifying glass. What he found next stunned the entire coin world. The quarter was a 2015 Kisatchie National Forest coin, part of the US Mint's America the Beautiful series. It had a D mint mark, meaning it was struck in Denver. But something about it was off. It didn't match the other Kisatchie quarters he had. The font was slightly misaligned. The edges were abnormally thick on one side. And beneath the eagle's wing, barely visible, was a doubling that shouldn't be there. He took it to a local dealer. The dealer laughed at first, until he saw it under the light, then he froze. This might be one of them, he whispered. That's when Carl was introduced to a legend. A story that circulated among high-end collectors for nearly a decade, about a small handful of 2015 Kisatchie quarters that were struck using a damaged die, one with a microscopic fracture running through the lower right quadrant. Only a few made it into circulation before the error was discovered, and the die was quietly replaced. They were supposed to be destroyed, but a few slipped through. It had all the signs: the partial ghost doubling under the eagle's wing, a compressed edge on the southeast rim, and an unmistakable die crack slicing through the last E in America. Only 5 coins with this error have ever surfaced. The last one, it sold at auction for $1.9 million. A low mintage anomaly, an unreported error, and a piece of US minting history that almost vanished before it was even noticed. Even seasoned numismatists, guys who've seen everything, were calling it the Ghost Eagle. Dealers were making phone calls. Fast ones. Bidding wars erupted in online forums. Private collectors started offering 6 figures, sight unseen. But what happened next took things to a whole new level. Carl was offered $75,000 in cash the same night he took the coin to the dealer, but something told him to wait. He reached out to a well-known auction house in Dallas. They had one of their top graders fly out to inspect it in person. After just one glance through his loupe, the grader closed the case and said, "This is a once-in-a-lifetime find." 2 months later, under bright lights and intense anticipation, Carl's coin was the final lot of the night. Bidding started at $100,000. Within 4 minutes, it crossed the $1 million mark. By the time the gavel dropped, the room was silent, and Carl? He walked away with $1.87 million from a coin he almost dropped in a Coinstar machine. But here's the real twist: there are still unknown quantities of this error out there. The mint never released an official recall or announcement. No statement. No admission, just quiet replacement dies and radio silence. These coins are still in circulation, still hiding in pocket change, still sitting in drawers, coin jars, glove boxes, and beneath couch cushions, and most people have no idea what they're holding. First, look for a 2015 D-Mint mark, Denver, then inspect the reverse side, the one with the wild turkey in flight. Use a magnifying glass, or even your phone's macro camera. Start with the lower right wing, under the feathers. If you see faint doubling, almost like a shadow effect, that's your first clue. Next, check the last E in America on the rim. Look for a tiny, jagged line running through it, a die crack. And finally, examine the coin's edge. The error coins tend to have a thicker rim on one side, almost like they were pressed off-center or with too much force. They clean the coin. Never, ever clean it. Even wiping it can reduce its value by tens of thousands. Leave it raw. Let the professionals grade it, because if yours is the real deal, it could change your life. One Louisiana man's curiosity turned into $1.9 million, and it all started with a dusty old roll of quarters under a workbench. So before you spend that next coin, before you dump your change in the jar, take one more look. Because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. It looked ordinary. Just another state quarter tossed into a vending machine tray. Scratched. Dull. Forgotten. But hidden in its design, in the smallest of details, was a minting error so rare, it turned one man's loose change into $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. And the entire coin world held its breath, because this wasn't just any quarter. It was a 2010 D-Mint mark mounted state quarter, and what happened next changed everything. You see, the mounted quarter was the last release of the 2010 America the Beautiful series. Minted in Denver, it should have been routine. Just millions of quarters stamped, boxed, and shipped. But somewhere deep inside the Denver Mint, something went wrong, and that tiny mistake created a jaw-dropping treasure that would take over a decade to be discovered. One ordinary man, a retired park ranger from Oregon, had no idea his luck was about to change forever. He'd been collecting coins since the 70s. Not professionally. Just casually. Filling folders, watching eBay, reading old red books. But one autumn afternoon, after paying for groceries in cash, he got some change back. A handful of quarters. He glanced down, Mount Hood. He smiled. Hey, that's local, he thought. Tossed it in his jacket pocket and went on with his day. But weeks later, flipping through coins for fun, he took a closer look and froze. There, just beneath the trees, along the coin's lower left field, was something he'd never seen before. A bizarre, double impression. Faint, but undeniable. Like the mountain had been printed twice. He took out a magnifier. The D-Mint mark looked off-center. And the edge? Razor sharp. No wear. No rim damage. It was as if this quarter had slipped through reality, struck twice by accident, but somehow spared the usual signs of destruction. He didn't know. But his gut screamed, this coin is special. He took it to a local coin dealer. The dealer took one glance and blinked. Where did you find this? He whispered. That's when the story blew wide open. This wasn't just a minor error. It was a rare Denver double die, possibly unique. Even more shocking? Experts believe it may have been created during a short transitional period when the mint switched die types, but hadn't calibrated them correctly. That's right, this error wasn't supposed to exist, and yet, somehow, it did. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The Ranger's coin was sent for grading. PCGS gave it a staggering MS68. Collectors online were baffled. The photos went viral in niche numismatic forums. Some denied it. Others believed it was the find of the decade. Then, at auction, it happened. A mysterious bidder placed a jaw-dropping offer, $968,000 to almost $1 million, for a quarter that nearly got spent on gas station coffee. That coin now sits in a temperature-controlled vault in New York, owned by a private collector who has refused to display it publicly. Because he believes it's the first of many undiscovered Mount Hood errors still out there, and he's hunting for more. And here's the wild part. Some experts believe up to 200 of these flawed 2010 D Mount Hood quarters may still exist. Most likely mixed into circulation, hiding in old coin jars, or stuck in parking meter return slots. One anonymous collector from Arizona even claims to have found a similar piece, but refuses to go public until he gets it graded, which raises the question, because this tiny detail is why it's worth millions and most people miss it. you need to look for a double die obverse or reverse, especially along the lettering, the mountain slopes, or tree lines. Tilt the coin under light. Look for ghosted outlines, doubling, or blurry edges. Pay attention to the D mint mark, some rare versions show it misaligned, almost floating. Many of these rare quarters have an unusually sharp, raised rim, often due to improper striking pressure, a dead giveaway that something went wrong during the minting process. But be careful, dozens of fakes are floating around online. Some people are artificially creating errors with pressure tools or acid. But they lack the clean, flawless finish of a true Denver mint strike. Real coins have a certain crispness, a factory perfect shine, even when the design is flawed. That's what made the $1 million coin so miraculous. It was mint fresh, but with a factory flaw that never should have happened. And here's something even more mysterious. The Denver Mint has never publicly acknowledged this error. No press releases. No explanations. It's as if this mistake was buried, hidden from records, forgotten by history. But the coins are real, and if even a handful remain in circulation, they could be worth a fortune. Collectors are rushing to check every Mount Hood quarter they can find. Coin shops have seen a spike in demand. Dealers are offering rewards just to inspect possible specimens, because this could be the next $1 million discovery. And yet, so many people still don't know. Right now, across the US, these coins may be sitting inside old parking change cups, resting in sock drawers, or gathering dust in forgotten piggy banks, unnoticed, unloved, but potentially life-changing. So here's what to do tonight: grab a magnifier, pull out your coin jar, and start checking your quarters, especially any 2010 D mint mark Mount Hood. Look closely, tilt them in the light, examine the mountain lines, the rim, the trees, the mint mark, because even if your coin has minor doubling, it could still be worth hundreds or thousands. And if you happen to find that perfect error, you might be holding the next $1 million Mount Hood quarter, and that means this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's one of the most shocking discoveries in modern numismatics. A 2000 Virginia State quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, bearing a subtle but deadly rare flaw. A mistake so well hidden, most collectors never even knew it existed, until it surfaced at a high-stakes auction and left seasoned dealers absolutely speechless. It began like any other ordinary day. A Virginia man, who'd been casually sorting through his spare change, spotted something just a little off. The shine looked different. The rim was thicker on one side. And the detail on the ship, that historic trio of colonial vessels, seemed distorted, like it had been stretched in time. He almost dismissed it. Just a beat-up quarter, right? Maybe it got worn down in circulation, but something stopped him. A feeling. Like this coin had a secret, that 1 second of hesitation changed his life, because this wasn't just any quarter. It was one of the rarest known minting errors in US history, hiding in a sea of billions, and when the truth came out, collectors were stunned. Dealers were scrambling. And that ordinary coin from pocket change? It ended up selling for over $1.1 million. To understand that, we need to go back to the year 2000, when the US Mint released the Virginia State Quarter as part of its ambitious 50 state quarters program. It was the 10th coin in the series, featuring the 3 ships that brought English colonists to Jamestown, the Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery. Over 900 million of these Virginia quarters were minted in Philadelphia that year. So how could one be worth more than $1 million? Amid those hundreds of millions, a microscopic error was born. A misalignment deep inside the mint's die system, likely the result of a damaged die face that wasn't replaced in time. The error caused an ultra-rare double strike, but with a twist. The coin was struck twice off-center, with a subtle shadow image trailing every design detail. The colonial ships looked like ghostly echoes. Doubled, but so faint, you'd miss it without a magnifying glass. But here's what shocked numismatists most: the error included a rotated die misalignment, which is so rare, it's only been seen a handful of times across all state quarters. Only one example of this exact flaw has been confirmed, and it's now considered the ghost ship Virginia quarter. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a major private auction in 2021, collectors expected the coin to fetch maybe $10,000, possibly $15,000 if the right bidder showed up. One by one, rival collectors pushed higher. $50,000, $100,000, $400,000, and then, an anonymous phone bidder shattered every estimate with a jaw-dropping bid, $1.1 million. This wasn't just a bidding war, it was a moment that rewrote what we thought we knew about modern coin value. The auctioneer's hammer fell. And just like that, one man's pocket change had turned into $1 million miracle. Experts believe there could be more of these flawed Virginia quarters still out there, hiding in collections, jars, drawers, and even vending machines, waiting to be discovered, because the die that created the ghost ship strike was likely used for at least a short production run before being retired. And since it's so subtle, most people would never recognize the signs. Because now you know what to look for. First, find a 2000 Virginia state quarter with the P mint mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail. The ships. Look closely under magnification for any sign of shadowing behind the masts, sails, or hulls. It will look like a faint double image, usually at a slight angle, the result of a misaligned double strike. Pay close attention to the lettering around the rim, especially Virginia 1788 and Jamestown 1607 to 2007. If you see a soft doubling or blurry edge, that's your first major clue. Then tilt the coin under light. A rotated die error will sometimes cause the images on the front and back to be slightly out of sync, a telltale indicator of a minting misalignment. The rarest examples also feature a thicker rim on one side due to pressure displacement during the faulty strike. It's a series of clues so subtle, most people overlook them entirely, but not you, because you're one of the few who now knows the full story. The kind of story coin legends are built on, the kind of story that turns spare change into life-changing fortune. Most collectors only check for errors on old silver coins. But this? This is a state quarter. A coin younger than most of us expected to be worth anything at all. That's why this moment matters. That's why you can't stop searching, because somewhere out there, in a forgotten cup holder, an old coin jar, or your very own dresser drawer, the next $1 million Virginia quarter could be hiding in plain sight, and you might be the one who finds it. This exact quarter, the 2000 P mint mark Virginia state quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.